Greetings, dear friends of the Humus heritage. Welcome back to another transformative journey into the wisdom of working with nature rather than against it. Today, we're diving deep into something that might completely revolutionize the way you think about feeding your soil and nourishing your plants. What if I told you that the secret to vibrant, thriving gardens isn't hidden in expensive bottles at the garden center, but growing wild right under your feet, in those very plants you've been pulling out and tossing aside? Let's explore the ancient wisdom of liquid fertilizer making, specifically the Jadam-style tonic that transforms forgotten weeds and humble molasses into a soil superfood that will breathe new life into your growing spaces. Picture this. On one side of your garden, plants struggle with yellowing leaves and stunted growth despite your best efforts with store-bought fertilizers. On the other side, a patch thrives with deep green foliage, abundant yields, and soil that feels alive in your hands. The difference? A simple liquid tonic made from what most gardeners discard without a second thought. For too long we've been conditioned to see certain plants as enemies, invasive weeds to be eradicated at all costs. Meanwhile, we're spending hard-earned money on synthetic amendments that often create more problems than they solve, disrupting soil biology and leaving us dependent on an endless cycle of purchasing. But what if those weeds are actually nutrient miners? Deep-rooted survivors that have been extracting minerals from depths our cultivated plants can't reach? What if they're not the problem but the solution we've been overlooking? Let's talk about these botanical overachievers we call weeds. Dandelions, with their impressive taproots diving several feet deep, pull up calcium, potassium, and iron from subsoil layers that remain untouched by shallow-rooted crops. Stinging nettle, that prickly nuisance, contains more nitrogen than many premium fertilizers, and offers a rich profile of trace minerals including manganese, sulfur, and copper. Clover fixes atmospheric nitrogen directly into a form plants can use, essentially creating fertilizer from thin air. These plants thrive in challenging conditions precisely because they're exceptionally efficient at gathering and concentrating nutrients. When we ferment them, we're unlocking this concentrated nutrition in a form that's immediately accessible to our garden plants. Enter Molasses, the unsung hero of this partnership. This thick, sweet byproduct of sugar processing serves as rocket fuel for the microbial workforce in our fermentation vessel. The simple sugars in molasses provide an immediate energy source for billions of beneficial bacteria and fungi, which then set to work breaking down the complex plant tissues into bioavailable nutrients. This isn't just decomposition, it's transformation. The microorganisms digest the plant material, releasing enzymes and organic acids that make locked-up nutrients soluble and ready for plant uptake. They also multiply exponentially, creating a living liquid teeming with beneficial organisms that will inoculate your soil when you apply the finished tonic. The synergy between these fermented greens and molasses creates something far greater than the sum of its parts, a complete balanced fertilizer, enhanced with beneficial biology that conventional products simply cannot replicate. Creating your Jadam-style liquid fertilizer begins with thoughtful harvesting. Walk your property, nearby fields, or untreated areas seeking out vigorous weeds in their vegetative growth stage before they've set seed. Avoid anything from roadsides that might carry heavy metals, from vehicle exhaust, or areas that have been sprayed with herbicides or pesticides. You're looking for dandelions, nettle, comfrey, clover, plantain, chickweed, lambsquarters, basically any green leafy wild plant growing abundantly. Harvest generously, filling your arms with fresh greens. A simple chop with garden shears or a machete will help these materials break down more quickly, though this step isn't absolutely necessary if you're patient. Now for the mixing, which couldn't be simpler. Take a food-grade plastic bucket or drum, 5 gallons is a good starting size for first-timers, and fill it about halfway with your chopped plant material. Here's where we introduce the magic ingredient that most beginners skip, a generous handful or two of leaf mold soil from beneath established trees or from the forest floor. This crumbly, rich-smelling earth contains exactly the right community of local microorganisms needed to kickstart your fermentation. These indigenous microbes are already adapted to your local conditions and will work more effectively than any commercial inoculant. Add your plant material to the container, sprinkle in the leaf mold, then fill with non-chlorinated water until everything is fully submerged. If you're using tap water, let it sit uncovered for at least 24 hours, so the chlorine can evaporate and won't harm your beneficial microbes. Stir in 2 tablespoons of molasses per gallon of water, mixing thoroughly to ensure the sweet feast is distributed throughout. The fermentation process itself requires more patience than effort. Cover your container with its lid, but don't seal it completely. Leave it slightly loose to allow fermentation gases to escape without inviting pests. Place this brewing vessel in a shaded, out-of-the-way spot, where the temperature remains relatively stable. Within days, you'll notice changes, bubbling, darkening liquid, and yes, a strong earthy smell that tells you anaerobic fermentation is well underway. While your tonic becomes usable after 10 to 14 days, the real magic happens with time. A 3-month fermentation produces a far more nutrient-complete, microbially rich product, and seasoned practitioners will tell you that their best batches have aged for 6 months or longer. The dark, almost black liquid you'll eventually strain is concentrated liquid gold for your garden. Once your tonic has fermented to that deep dark color and the plant materials have mostly broken down, it's time to put this living fertilizer to work. Strain the liquid through cheesecloth, an old t-shirt, or fine mesh to remove the remaining solids. Don't throw these away though. The spent plant matter makes an excellent addition to your compost pile, or can remain in your fermentation container as a starter culture for your next batch. This is the beauty of the continuous brewing method. You can keep adding fresh greens, water, and molasses to the existing culture, maintaining a perpetual source of fertilizer for years without starting from scratch. Dilution is critical because this fermented tonic is potent stuff. Think of it like concentrated juice that needs water added before drinking. Start conservatively with a ratio of 1 part tonic to 100 parts water, especially for young or sensitive plants. As you gain confidence and observe how your plants respond, you can adjust anywhere from 1 to 20 for heavy feeders, up to 1 to 300 for a gentle soil boost. Apply your diluted tonic as a soil drench, pouring it around the root zone where it can immediately begin feeding soil life and releasing nutrients to plant roots. You can also use it as a foliar spray on leaves during cooler parts of the day, though soil application tends to provide more dramatic and lasting results. Watch what happens over the following weeks. Leaves deepen to rich green, growth accelerates, and plants develop that robust, resilient quality that only comes from proper soil nutrition. This simple practice of fermenting weeds into fertilizer represents something much larger than a money-saving garden hack. It's a fundamental shift in how we relate to our growing spaces and the natural cycles that sustain them. When you start viewing dandelions as free fertilizer rather than lawn enemies, when you recognize that your garden's waste is actually its greatest resource, you step into a regenerative mindset that transforms every aspect of your gardening. You're no longer dependent on external inputs shipped from across the country. You're no longer wondering what mysterious ingredients are in those bottles of blue liquid. Instead, you're closing nutrient loops, building soil biology, and working in partnership with the organisms that have been cycling nutrients since long before humans invented agriculture. So here's my challenge to you, fellow soil stewards. Gather those weeds this week, mix up a batch of this forgotten tonic. Watch what happens when you feed your soil this living, complete nutrition that you've created with your own hands from materials that literally grow wild. Document your results, take photos of the transformation, and share your experience with our community here on the Humus Heritage. We're building something together, a movement of gardeners who understand that the best solutions have been growing under our feet all along. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our journey into regenerative wisdom, and please share this video with anyone who's ready to see their garden in a completely new light. Until next time, may your soil be rich and your harvests abundant.